I watched from behind the wooden screen as father clutched the imperial edict, his hands trembling. The servants had just left after reading Emperor Yanxi's decree aloud. Father's face had gone pale as death itself. I remembered that day 3 weeks ago when father had knelt before the emperor's throne, begging desperately, "Please, your majesty, spare my son Liang Wei, he meant no offense at the festival." Emperor Yanxi's cold voice had echoed through the throne room, "Your son insulted me publicly. The penalty is death. I beg you, your majesty, take my daughter instead, my most precious child. She will serve you faithfully as proof of our family's loyalty." The emperor had considered this, his dark eyes calculating. Finally, he'd agreed. "Send your daughter within 3 days. Your son's execution will be delayed. He will be demoted to commoner status but may live." Now, holding that edict, father's whole body shook. He stumbled toward the pavilion in our garden, clutching the scroll like it might burn him. I followed silently, staying in the shadows as I always did. The unwanted child barely noticed. Father collapsed onto the pavilion bench, staring at nothing. "How can I do this?" father whispered to himself, voice breaking. "How can I send my precious daughter to that monster?" I pressed closer to the pavilion's carved lattice, listening. "The emperor's palace is a death trap," father continued, speaking to the empty air. "His concubines die mysteriously. Some say he tortures them for entertainment. Others say the women tear each other apart for his favor." His voice cracked. "How can I send my beautiful daughter to that hell?" My heart pounded. I'd heard the rumors too, whispers of Emperor Yanxi's cruelty, his cold indifference, the concubines who entered the palace and never emerged. Father stood abruptly, packing the pavilion like a caged animal. "But if I don't send her, Liang Wei dies. My son, my heir, my pride, everything I've built depends on him." He slammed his fist against the railing. "There must be another way, there must be." Then his eyes fell on me. I froze, half hidden behind the screen. Father's gaze sharpened, traveling over my slight frame, my delicate features, the face that looked so much like my sister's. "You," he breathed, "come here now." I stepped into the pavilion, keeping my eyes lowered. "Yes, father." He circled me slowly, studying every detail. "You look like her. Your mother was a beautiful slave before she died birthing you. You inherited her looks." His voice turned calculating. "And you're useless otherwise, can't fight, can't study properly, too soft and effeminate for a real man." The words cut, but I was used to them. I'd heard variations my entire life. Father grabbed my chin, forcing my face up. "You could pass for a woman, dressed properly with the right training." His eyes gleamed with desperate hope. "Yes, yes, this could work." "Father," my voice came out small, frightened. "You will go to the emperor in your sister's place," he declared. "You will pretend to be the daughter I promised. The emperor will never know the difference." My blood turned to ice. "But father, You're nothing," he snarled. "A useless son born from a slave. This is the only valuable thing you'll ever do for this family." He released my chin roughly. "You will go, you will deceive the emperor, and you will protect your sister's life. If he discovers the truth, then your slave sister will be sold to the worst brothels and killed." Father's face twisted with rage and fear. Father called the head servant immediately. "Dress him as a woman, spare no expense, he must be perfect." The servant bowed, eyeing me with a mixture of pity and calculation. "It will be done, my lord." Over the next 2 days, they transformed me. Servants scrubbed my skin until it glowed pale and smooth. They applied powders and rouge to my face, teaching me how to maintain the illusion. They plucked my eyebrows into elegant arches and styled my hair with jade pins and silk flowers. The robes came next, layers of embroidered silk in soft colors with wide sleeves that hid my hands. Jewelry adorned my neck, wrists, and hair, each piece carefully chosen to enhance the feminine image. I stared at my reflection in the bronze mirror and barely recognized myself. The person looking back appeared delicate, beautiful, vulnerable, everything a proper lady should be. "Walk like this," the servant instructed, demonstrating small, shuffling steps. "Keep your voice soft and gentle, lower your eyes in the emperor's presence. Most importantly, stay as far from him as possible." "Why?" I asked. The servant's expression darkened. "Because Emperor Yanxi is unpredictable. He spoils his favorites with gifts and attention one moment, then watches them suffer the next. The other concubines will target you out of jealousy. You'll face dangers from every direction. On the morning of departure, father came to inspect me one final time. His eyes traveled over my transformed appearance, and for a moment something like regret flickered across his face. Then it hardened again. Remember, if Emperor Yanxi discovers you're not a real woman, he will execute you immediately for the deception. Then he will come for your sister. She will be sold to brothels and killed in the worst ways imaginable. Her blood will be on your hands. The threat crushed the air from my lungs. I understand, father. You will keep this secret no matter what happens. You will endure whatever the emperor does to you. You will survive. He gripped my shoulders painfully. Your only purpose is to protect your sister. Nothing else matters. Do you understand? Yes, father. His hands dropped away. The carriage is waiting. I climbed into the enclosed carriage, silk robes rustling around me. Through the curtain, I watched our estate disappear behind me, the only home I'd ever known. The journey to the Forbidden Palace took hours. With every mile, my fear grew. What would Emperor Yanxi do when he saw me? Would he be fooled? Would he recognize the deception immediately? The palace gates loomed ahead, massive and terrifying, painted red as blood. Guards surrounded the carriage when we stopped. A eunuch in fine robes opened the door and bowed. "Welcome to the Forbidden Palace. His Majesty awaits news of your arrival." I stepped out carefully, remembering to take small steps. The palace stretched before me, endless red walls, golden tiles gleaming in the sunlight, gardens more beautiful and more dangerous than anything I'd imagined. Other concubines watched from covered walkways, their faces hidden behind painted fans. I felt their eyes measuring, judging, already seeing me as competition or prey. The eunuch led me through winding corridors to a small but elegantly furnished chamber. "You will rest here tonight. Tomorrow you will be presented to His Majesty formally. Until then, familiarize yourself with your quarters." He left and I was alone. I explored the room with shaking hands, silk bedding, carved furniture, fresh flowers in delicate vases. Everything was beautiful, everything felt like a trap. I practiced my walk, my gestures, my soft voice until exhaustion pulled me toward the bed. But sleep wouldn't come. Every shadow seemed to hide watching eyes, every sound made me jump. Near midnight, I heard footsteps outside my door. They stopped. A shadow fell across the paper screen, tall, broad-shouldered, radiating power. "Tomorrow," a deep voice said from beyond the door, cold, controlled, absolute in its authority. "Keep an eye on this one." Another voice, a guard perhaps, responded, "Yes, Your Majesty." My heart stopped. Emperor Yanxi. He was already here, already watching, already suspicious. The footsteps retreated slowly, deliberately, as if he wanted me to know he'd been there. I sat frozen on the bed, barely breathing until the sounds faded completely. He knew I'd arrived, he was interested, or suspicious. Either way, I was already on the Emperor's radar, and that terrified me more than anything. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I imagined those cold eyes seeing through my disguise, seeing the truth, condemning me to death. When dawn broke, servants arrived to prepare me for the formal presentation. They dressed me in emerald silk robes embroidered with golden phoenixes, symbols of favor and status that felt like chains around my body. "You're fortunate," one servant whispered as she arranged my hair. "The Emperor rarely shows interest in new arrivals so quickly. He must have heard of your family's reputation. Or he suspected something was wrong. That seemed more likely." The hall of ceremony was massive, filled with officials in formal robes and concubines arranged by rank. I was placed among the lowest positions at the very back. Relief flooded through me. Perhaps I could remain invisible after all. Then Emperor Yanxi entered, and the entire world seemed to still. He moved like a predator, each step purposeful and powerful. His robes were black and gold, his face carved from stone, beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. Authority radiated from him like heat from fire. When his eyes swept the room, I felt their weight even before they reached me. Then they stopped, fixed on my face, held there for 3 heartbeats that felt like eternity. His expression revealed nothing, no surprise, no interest, no anger. just that dark, penetrating gaze that seemed to see through skin and bone into my trembling soul. I forced myself to look down, cheeks burning, my hands shook inside my sleeves. The ceremony proceeded with formal speeches and ritual bows. I mimicked those around me, terrified of making mistakes. But I felt Emperor Yanxi's attention like a physical touch, always returning to me no matter where he looked. Afterward, as everyone dispersed, I noticed a guard lingering nearby, the same one from last night. He watched me carefully, nodding every gesture. I was being observed, studied, tested. My assigned quarters were in the East Wing, surprisingly close to the Emperor's private chambers. The other concubines occupied the West Wing, separated by gardens and strict protocol. "Strange placement for a newcomer," my attending maid whispered nervously as she helped me settle in. "Usually new arrivals start in the outer quarters far from His Majesty." "Why am I different?" I asked, fear tightening my throat. She hesitated, then lowered her voice even further. "I don't know, but the Emperor himself ordered your placement. He doesn't usually involve himself in such details." That night I couldn't sleep again. I paced my room, practicing feminine gestures, rehearsing soft responses, trying to prepare for every possible scenario. What did Emperor Yanxi want? Was this favor or torture? The servant's warning echoed in my mind. He spoils his favorites one moment, then watches them suffer the next. The next morning, I encountered him in the corridor. I'd been walking toward the gardens when those familiar footsteps approached. I pressed myself against the wall, eyes lowered, trying to become invisible. He stopped directly in front of me. I could see his black robes from the corner of my vision, smell the sandalwood scent that clung to him. Silence stretched between us, heavy, loaded with unspoken questions. Then he continued walking, his sleeve briefly brushing my shoulder as he passed. That small touch sent lightning through my body. I stood frozen long after he disappeared around the corner, my heart pounding so loudly I was certain the entire palace could hear it. What did it mean? Accident, deliberate message, test. The next day, a gift arrived at my chamber, a small box wrapped in silk. Inside lay expensive calligraphy brushes and the finest ink, along with rice paper embroidered with tiny dragons. No note, no explanation, but the dragons were the Emperor's personal symbol. I stared at the gifts in confusion. Why would he send these? I'd shown no particular interest in calligraphy, we'd barely exchanged words. Then I remembered yesterday morning, before encountering him in the corridor, I'd been practicing calligraphy in my room. I'd made mistakes, spilling ink across the table in frustration. My window had been open. Had he passed by, heard my frustrated sighs, seen my clumsy attempts? That evening, another gift appeared, a silk handkerchief, small and pristine, embroidered with his personal seal. It was intimate, the kind of gift given to someone special, someone noticed. My maid's eyes widened when she saw it. "The Emperor is showing you favor," she whispered, frightened and awed. "This is unprecedented." I held the handkerchief, soft fabric warm in my trembling hands, and wondered if I was being blessed or cursed. The other concubines noticed the Emperor's attention within days. Their whispers followed me everywhere, sharp as winter wind cutting through silk. Lady May, a favored concubine with 20 years in the palace, approached me during the garden assembly. Her smile was beautiful and venomous, painted lips curving with false sweetness. "Little flower," she purred, her voice carrying to the other women. "How fortunate you are, receiving His Majesty's gifts so quickly. Most of us waited months, even years, for such recognition." The other concubines watched from behind painted fans, their eyes glittering with jealousy and calculation. I kept my voice soft and humble as I'd been taught. "I don't seek His Majesty's favor, Lady May. I'm honored simply to serve." "Of course you don't seek it." Her eyes hardened despite her smile. "Yet somehow favor finds you anyway, the finest quarters, personal gifts, the Emperor's attention. How very curious." Before I could respond, she turned away, her entourage following like a flock of colorful, dangerous birds. That evening, during the formal dinner, I discovered someone had replaced my seat cushion. The moment I sat down, needles hidden in the fabric pierced through my robes into my skin. Pain shot through me, sharp, burning, deliberate. I bit my lip hard, tasting blood, refusing to cry out or show weakness. Around me, concubines continued eating and chatting as if nothing was wrong. But I saw Lady May watching from across the hall, satisfaction gleaming in her eyes. Across the vast dining hall, Emperor Yanxi sat on the raised platform reserved for royalty. His face remained expressionless as always, but his eyes flickered toward me. He saw everything: my rigid posture, the way my hands gripped my chopsticks too tightly, the slight paleness of my face. His gaze traveled to Lady May, noted her satisfied expression, and something cold and dangerous passed through his features. He said nothing, did nothing, simply observed. I endured the rest of the meal in silent agony, each movement sending fresh pain through my body. When the dinner finally ended, I limped back to my quarters, blood staining my inner robes. My maid gasped when she saw the wounds. "My lady, who did this?" "It doesn't matter," I said quietly, though fear and anger burned in my chest. "Just treat the wounds and say nothing." The next morning, news spread through the palace like wildfire. Lady May had been transferred to the furthest quarters of the palace, her personal servants replaced, her privileges reduced to those of a junior concubine. No announcement was made, no explanation given. But everyone understood the emperor's silent message. I couldn't sleep that night. Emperor Yanxi's silent protection disturbed me more than the attack itself. He barely knew me, or so he pretended. Why defend someone who was supposed to be nothing more than political compensation? The questions tormented me as I walked the moonlit gardens, trying to clear my racing thoughts. The night air was cool against my flushed skin. Lotus flowers floated in the pond, their white petals glowing ghostly in the darkness. Then I heard voices, low, urgent, conspiratorial, drifting from the ornate pavilion ahead. "The emperor grows too powerful," a man's voice said. "The ministers will never agree to his new taxation policies. He's centralizing control, eliminating our influence." "Then we must act before he consolidates power completely," another responded. "Remove him during the summer hunt. Away from the palace, his guard will be smaller." My blood turned to ice, an assassination plot against Emperor Yanxi. I should have run, should have stayed silent and uninvolved. This wasn't my concern, I was just trying to survive, to protect my sister. But my feet carried me closer, hiding behind the pavilion's carved columns. Through gaps in the wood, I saw three officials in dark robes, their faces shadowed by the night. "The poison has been arranged," the first official continued. "He won't survive the first night of the hunt," the second man confirmed. "Once he's dead, we'll install a puppet emperor, someone we can control." A hand suddenly closed over my mouth from behind. Another arm wrapped around my waist, pulling me backward into the shadows with terrifying strength and silence. I struggled instinctively until I smelled sandalwood and heard that deep, calm voice at my ear, "Be still." Emperor Yanxi, he'd been following me, or perhaps he'd been tracking the conspirators and I'd stumbled into his investigation. His hand remained over my mouth, his body pressed against my back, holding me completely immobile. We stood frozen in the darkness while the officials continued their treasonous conversation, planning their emperor's murder in elaborate detail. Finally, the conspirators left. Only then did Yanxi release me slowly, watching to see if I would scream or flee. I stood trembling, heart racing so fast I thought I might collapse. In the moonlight, his face was impossible to read, all sharp angles and controlled power. "You heard nothing," he said quietly. It wasn't a question or a command. It was a statement of fact, a decision he'd already made about my fate. I nodded quickly, desperately. "Yes, Your Majesty, I heard nothing, I swear." "Why were you here?" he interrupted, his dark eyes piercing. "I couldn't sleep, Your Majesty," I whispered, my voice shaking. "I didn't mean to overhear anything, I was just walking, trying to calm my thoughts. I'll go back immediately." His hand caught my wrist before I could flee, not roughly but with gentle firmness that was somehow more terrifying than violence. His fingers pressed against my racing pulse. "Lower your voice," he commanded softly. "You're safe." Safe? I was anything but safe. I'd overheard treason, been caught by the emperor himself, and now stood in darkness with a man known for his cold cruelty. But his thumb moved against my wrist, a small circling motion that seemed meant to calm rather than threaten. The gesture confused me completely. "Those men plan to kill me," he said, almost conversationally. "You could warn them that I know, you could earn their favor by betraying me." "I would never," I started, horrified. "No," he agreed, studying my face with unsettling intensity. "You wouldn't. I've been watching you, Liang Chen, you're not like the others." My breath caught. He'd used my real name, not the false female name on my documents, my actual name. "You know," I whispered, "you know who I really am." His lips curved slightly, not quite a smile but something close. "I've known since the moment you arrived." The world tilted beneath my feet. "Then why haven't you executed me for the deception? Why protect me? Why any of this?" He released my wrist slowly but didn't step back. We remained close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating from his body. "Because you interest me." "That's not an answer." "It's the only answer you'll receive tonight." His expression shifted back to unreadable stone. "Return to your quarters, tell no one what you heard, I will handle these traitors." "But your majesty." "That's an order." He turned to leave, then paused. "The needles in your cushion, did they cause serious injury?" The question caught me off guard. They hurt but nothing severe." "Good." He glanced back at me and in the moonlight his eyes held something that made my chest tight. "I don't tolerate those who harm what's mine." Then he was gone, melting into the shadows as silently as he'd appeared, leaving me alone with a racing heart and 1,000 unanswered questions. "What's mine?" The words echoed in my mind all night. What did he mean? What did any of this mean? I returned to my quarters and lay awake until dawn, replaying every moment, every word, every confusing gesture from this impossible emperor. The next day, palace guards arrested 2 of the 3 officials I'd seen in the pavilion. The third disappeared without explanation, fled or silenced, I couldn't know which. No public announcement was made about the assassination plot, but whispers spread through the palace like smoke. Everyone sensed something had happened, some shift in power, some hidden danger averted. I attended the afternoon tea ceremony with shaking hands, jumping at every sound, flinching at every glance. What if someone connected me to the arrests? What if the conspirators had accomplices who blamed me? "Steady," a voice murmured behind me. I turned to find Emperor Yanxi standing there, close enough that his sleeve brushed my shoulder. The other concubines immediately bowed deeply and created distance, giving us space whether we wanted it or not. His hand touched my elbow so briefly that anyone watching might have missed it. But I felt the warmth, the steadiness, the silent instruction to calm down and breathe. "You're drawing attention with your fear," he said, barely audible. "Breathe slowly, pretend we're discussing poetry." I forced myself to inhale deeply, exhale slowly. "Yes, Your Majesty." "Better." His fingers squeezed my elbow once gently, then released. "You're safe, I told you I'd handle it." Then he walked away as if nothing had happened, leaving me standing there with a pounding heart. That night I lay awake staring at the silk canopy above my bed, my mind replaying every interaction with Emperor Yanxi. My wrist still tingled where he'd held it in the garden. My elbow remembered his steadying touch. He knew my secret. He'd known from the beginning, yet instead of exposing me, executing me, punishing my family for the deception, he'd protected me, sent gifts, intervened when others attacked, touched me with a gentleness that seemed impossible from a man with his reputation. "He spoils his favorites one moment, then watches them suffer the next," the servant had warned. Was that what this was? Some twisted game where he built me up before tearing me down? Was he playing with me the way a cat plays with a mouse before the kill? Or was it something else, something I was too afraid to name? 3 days later, during the morning meal, a servant offered Emperor Yanxi a cup of tea. It was a formal ceremony, witnessed by dozens of officials and concubines arranged according to rank. I watched from my position near the back as I always did. The servant approached with the ceremonial tea tray, bowing deeply. Everything seemed normal, routine. But something felt wrong. The servant's hands trembled slightly, his eyes darted nervously, and when he lifted the cup to present it to the emperor, I saw the faintest discoloration in the liquid, just a shade darker than it should be. "Poison." Your Majesty, wait! The words burst from me before I could stop them, before I could think about protocol or consequences. Everyone turned to stare. I'd broken protocol, spoken without permission, drawn attention to myself in the worst possible way. Officials frowned, concubines gasped behind their fans. Emperor Yanxi lowered the cup slowly, his eyes finding mine across the crowded hall. His expression revealed nothing, but I felt the weight of his attention like a physical force. Explain, he commanded, his voice carrying through the sudden silence. My mouth went dry. How could I explain instinct? How could I justify my outburst without sounding insane? The servant, Your Majesty, I said, my voice shaking. He seems afraid. Guards immediately seized the man. He crumbled under their grip, sobbing confessions about poison and bribes and threats against his family. The tea was tested and confirmed lethal, enough poison to kill within minutes. The hall erupted in chaos. Officials shouted accusations. Concubines screamed, but through it all, Emperor Yanxi remained perfectly calm, standing like carved stone in the center of the storm. His eyes never left my face. In that gaze, I saw something that made my chest tight and my breath short: approval, curiosity, and something deeper I couldn't name but felt in my bones. After the hall cleared and the would-be assassin was dragged away, a guard delivered a message. The Emperor wishes to see you in his private study tonight. The day passed in a blur of anxiety and anticipation. Other concubines watched me with new wariness. I'd saved the Emperor's life, earned his attention in the most dramatic way possible. I was now marked as someone important, someone dangerous to cross. When night fell, I walked to the Emperor's private study with trembling legs. Guards stood outside but didn't stop me. One simply opened the door as if my arrival had been expected. The study was smaller than I'd imagined, lined with books and scrolls, lit by soft lanterns that cast dancing shadows on the walls. Emperor Yanxi stood by the window, his back to me, gazing out at the moonlit gardens. You may enter, he said without turning around. I stepped inside. The door closed behind me with a soft click that sounded impossibly loud in the quiet room. We were alone, truly, completely alone for the first time. You saved my life today, he stated, still not looking at me. I only noticed something wrong, Your Majesty. Anyone would have. No, he turned finally, and the intensity in his eyes stole my breath. Most would have stayed silent, most wouldn't risk themselves to protect an emperor. He moved closer, each step deliberate and controlled. Protecting me isn't their concern. Their survival depends on staying invisible, avoiding attention. His gaze traveled over my face, studying every feature. Yet you spoke, you risked yourself. Why? I couldn't breathe properly with him this close. I don't know, Your Majesty. You're lying, but he didn't sound angry, almost amused, intrigued. Tell me the truth, Liang Chen. There was that name again, my real name, spoken like a secret between us. I couldn't let you die, I whispered, the truth escaping before I could stop it. Even though I should stay hidden, stay safe, protect only myself and my sister, I couldn't watch you drink that poison without trying to warn you. Something shifted in his expression, a crack in the stone mask he wore. You've been watching me. It wasn't a question, but I nodded anyway. Yes. Noticing things, he continued, moving even closer. The gifts I send, the protection I provide, the way I position guards near your quarters. His voice dropped lower. The touches meant to steady you, the glances meant to communicate what I cannot say publicly. My heart pounded so hard I was certain he could hear it. I've noticed. And what have you concluded? He was close enough now that I could see the faint scar along his jaw, could smell sandalwood and something uniquely him. I don't understand, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. You've known my secret from the beginning. You could have executed me, punished my family, made an example of our deception. Instead, you've protected me, sent gifts, intervened when others attacked. I met his eyes, finding courage I didn't know I possessed. Why? His hand rose slowly, giving me time to pull away. When I didn't move, his fingers brushed my cheek with devastating gentleness. Because from the moment you walked into my palace, trembling but brave, afraid but determined, I couldn't look away. The confession hung between us, impossible and real. You were supposed to be political compensation, he continued, his thumb tracing my cheekbone. "A unwanted son dressed as a woman sent to appease an emperor's anger. You should have meant nothing to me." His eyes darkened with emotion. "But you noticed things others missed. You saved my life without hesitation. You're loyal and kind in a palace built on betrayal and cruelty." "Your Majesty." "Yanxi," he corrected softly. "When we're alone, call me Yanxi." The intimacy of it, the emperor giving me permission to use his personal name, made my knees weak. "Yanxi," I breathed, testing the name on my tongue. His other hand framed my face, holding me like something precious and fragile. "I know I should let you go, send you away before this becomes more complicated." His forehead touched mine, "but I find I cannot." "I'm afraid," I whispered against his skin, "of what this means, of what could happen if anyone discovers." "Let them discover," he said fiercely. "I'm tired of hiding, tired of pretending you don't matter." His hands tightened on my face. "You saved my life today, Liang Chen. You've saved it every day since you arrived just by existing." "I don't understand." "Then let me show you," he murmured and kissed me. The world dissolved. There was only warmth and gentleness and a hunger that felt like it had been building since the moment we met. His lips moved against mine with careful intensity, as if he was afraid I might break or disappear. I kissed him back, all my fear and confusion transforming into something else, something bright and terrifying and impossibly real. When we finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against mine again. "This is dangerous," he said quietly, "for both of us." "I know. If the ministers discover our relationship, they'll use it against me. Against you, they'll try to tear us apart or destroy us completely." "I know," I repeated. He smiled then, a real smile, rare and beautiful. "Yet you're still here." "I choose to be here." The words came from somewhere deep inside me, a truth I couldn't deny anymore. "With you." His kiss this time was deeper, more urgent, carrying promises and hopes and fears neither of us could voice. We stood together in the lamplight, emperor and concubine, man and man, sharing truths more dangerous than any assassination plot. Outside, the palace slept, unaware that everything had changed in this small room. "What happens now?" I finally asked, my head resting against his chest, hearing his heartbeat steady and strong. "Now we face whatever comes," he said, his arms wrapped around me protectively, "together. The ministers will oppose this, the concubines will spread rumors, my family." "Your family sent you here to die," he interrupted, his voice hardening. "They cared nothing for your safety, only for protecting their precious daughter. You owe them nothing." The words struck deep because they were true. Father had threatened me, used me, sent me into danger without a second thought. I was disposable to him, always had been. "But my sister—" "Your sister is safe, I've already ensured it." His hand stroked my hair gently. "You're not responsible for everyone's happiness, Liang Chen. You're allowed to choose your own path." Tears burned my eyes. "I choose you," I whispered, "but I'm terrified of what that means." "So am I," he admitted, and that honesty undid me completely. We spent the night together, not doing anything improper, simply existing in the same space, learning each other's presence. He told me about the loneliness of power, the isolation of the throne. I told him about growing up unwanted, always invisible. When dawn broke, we both knew the fragile peace couldn't last. The palace was too full of eyes, too full of people who would use any weakness against us. But for now, walking back to my quarters as the sun painted the sky gold and pink, I felt lighter than I had in months. The future was uncertain, dangerous, probably doomed. But I wasn't facing it alone anymore. The next weeks brought new challenges. Rumors spread about the emperor's favor toward me, officials whispered, concubines plotted. But Yanxi faced it all with absolute authority, making it clear that anyone who challenged me challenged him directly. Lady Chen, who'd been kind from the beginning, pulled me aside one afternoon. "I've been here 8 years, she said quietly. "I've never seen the emperor like this with anyone. Whatever is happening between you two, it's real." "I know," I replied, unable to hide my smile. "Then protect it," she urged, "because those who fear change will do anything to destroy what threatens them." Her warning proved prophetic. 3 days later, Minister Zhang stood before the court and declared, "Your Majesty, there are concerns about your newest concubine, questions about their identity and intentions." The hall fell deadly silent. I felt every eye turn toward me, felt the weight of exposure crushing down. But Emperor Yanxi stood slowly, his presence filling the hall with authority so absolute that even the minister flinched back. "Explain your concerns, Minister Zhang," Emperor Yanxi said, his voice dropping to a dangerous pitch that made the entire hall tense. The minister shifted uncomfortably. "We believe this concubine may not be who they claim. There are irregularities in the documentation." My heart stopped. This was exposure, execution, the end. Minister Zhang's face went white as Yanxi descended the platform with predatory grace. "And you have proof?" Yanxi asked coldly. "Evidence is being gathered, Your Majesty." "Then gather it quickly," Yanxi interrupted, his voice terrifying in its softness. "But remember, false accusations against my household are treason. You understand the penalty for treason?" Zhang stammered, "Yes, Your Majesty." "Good, this audience is concluded." A guard approached Zhang in the corridor delivering a document. The minister's face drained of color. Later, I learned Zhang's own conspiracy had been exposed, evidence appearing mysteriously, thoroughly documented. That night, Yanxi summoned me. The moment the door closed, he pulled me into his arms. "They're getting bolder, they see you as my weakness. Maybe I should leave." "No," his grip tightened. "I won't let you go, you matter more than any throne." He kissed me deeply, desperately, and I knew we were past the point of no return. "Why?" the question burst out. "Why do all this for me? I'm nothing, just a deception, a substitute." "You're everything," he said fiercely. His hands slid into my hair, tilting my face up. "Because you see me, not the emperor, not the power, you see the man beneath. You saved my life without hesitation. You've shown me kindness where everyone else wants something." Tears burned my eyes. "I'm terrified of losing this, of losing you." "Then don't." He kissed me slower this time, savoring. "Stay with me, choose me, let me choose you." "What about the ministers, the political consequences?" "I don't care." His grip tightened. "I'm tired of letting others dictate my life. I'm tired of pretending I'm not in love with you." The word stopped my heart. "What?" "I love you, Liang Chen." He said it clearly, firmly. "I've loved you since you risked yourself to save my life, since you showed me that not everyone in this palace is playing political games." I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only stare as those impossible words echoed through my entire being. "You don't have to say it back," he continued quickly. "I know this is complicated." "I love you too," I interrupted, the truth bursting free. "I've been terrified to admit it, but I do. I love you, Yanxi." His kiss was different this time, celebratory, claiming, promising forever. The next morning, Yanxi issued an official decree that shocked the palace. He acknowledged me publicly not as a concubine but as his chosen empress, his companion. The announcement caused uproar, ministers protested, nobles gossiped, but Yanxi faced them all with absolute authority. "Anyone who challenges this decision challenges me," he declared in open court. "I am clear where my loyalty lies. I expect the same clarity from all of you." The opposition crumbled, not immediately and not without resentment, but Yanxi's power was too great to oppose directly. That evening I stood beside him on the palace balcony, watching the sunset paint the sky gold and crimson. "Do you regret it?" I asked quietly, "all the trouble I've caused?" "Never." His arm wrapped around my waist, pulling me close. "You taught me what matters. Power means nothing if I can't protect what I love." "I love you too," I whispered, finally brave enough to say it freely. His smile was rare and beautiful. "I know, you proved it every day." We stood together as darkness fell, two people who'd found something impossible in a world of strict rules and dangerous politics. My brother was safe, my secrets were revealed, my identity was known, and I had never been more free. 6 months later, the palace had settled into its new rhythm. I walked beside Yanxi openly, learning governance. One night he said, "You were supposed to be nothing, but you became everything." "And you became my heart," I replied. We would face new challenges, political intrigue, diplomatic crises, the endless demands of empire, but we'd face them together, emperor and empress, ruler and beloved. I'd entered this palace to protect my brother, but in the end I'd found something I never expected, a love worth fighting for, and I would protect it fiercely until my last breath.